Hi everybody, welcome to a program of Yeshiva class which is held every week at this time, and I want to start right off because I know many of you have been tuning in to our program, so we want to try to bring some beauty of Torah, the Jewish Bible, the only Bible that we have, the 5 books of Moses that was divinely given to Moses. Only he was present when the dictation was sent to him, as we see in Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 24. 31 verse 24, the Torah was given to Moses, dictated to him, and he made 12 copies. The original he kept in the portable temple, which later became the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Yes, so here I have a picture of, this is being recorded on December the 11th, December 11th, 2019. And this is a picture of my grandson, son, and daughter-in-law who were at the occasion of my grandson's wedding. As you can see, the chuppah on top of those people. My son, Moshe Aaron, and by the way, he only has one name, the Hebrew name that he was given, Moshe Aaron, right? And his son, called Yeshayahu, who's the groom, the chassan, and his mother besides him is Renee Rachel. And basically, they are awaiting the arrival of the Kala, the bride. And according to Jewish custom, that is what we do at a wedding, because where do we get it from? The escorting of the bride down the aisle to Adam, the first wedding that we learn of in the book of Genesis, also occurred at that procedure. And you know, it's so important that the wedding took place on December 1st, which is a little week and a half ago, and you can always find something pertaining to a incident or a happening, or for instance a wedding, a good word, in the Sedra. Sedra means the portion of the week that we read on Shabbos. And you know, these are taken by amateur relatives, so they're not going to come out, they're not going to see them well. We don't have the originals from the professional pictures or what have you. Anyway, the point is that the Seder that we read that previous Saturday in Vayetze speaks about marriage, in that Lavan had 2 daughters, Rachel and Leah, and he escorted the bride-to-be down the aisle, right? And he gave her over to the groom, Jacob. And unbeknown to him, it was the sister of Rachel whom he wanted to marry, but instead was given Leah, as he wanted the firstborn to be married before the next youngest. So he gave him Leah as a wife. She was veiled, and even though they knew the signs, Jacob knew the signs that Rachel would give over to Jacob because they knew the trickery of the father Laban, and they gave each other signs to know that it was really the bride he was getting. But Rachel, in her modesty and her feeling sorry for her sister, gave the signs over to Leah, and Leah gave them to Jacob, and he knew it was going to be Rachel, but it was really Leah because Rachel gave Leah the signs. So we see that right then and there we have a wedding. And when he found out, he said that he will observe the week and then work for his new bride, Rachel. And it's significant to note that he would fulfill the week of marriage after the wedding, which we do today, and we have Sheva Brachas, where the couple, newly married couple, for 7 days go to, are hosted by friends, so that they will not lead to intimacy from the first night on till the 7 days of impurity, until the 8th day when she is again permitted to her husband. And of course we have the laws of mikveh and tahara, which we follow today, which observant people follow today. And it is significant to note that when these laws of the Torah were given, like in Deuteronomy 29:13, and everyone should write these down to look at the pasuk, or in English, the sentence that I'm going to be quoting, because over there it says that those Jews that are going to cross over into the land of Israel from Canaan, into Canaan, right? Canaan was previously inhabited by the 7 nations, which God gave to the Jewish people after their sin reached a high degree of sinfulness and throughout the people. So then, at that time, which would be 400 years, the Jewish people were given the possession of the possession of the land of Israel, and they crossed over the Jordan. They crossed the Jordan River, and before they went, God made this covenant with them. And that was, it's in 29:13, he said, I make this covenant with those people who are passing by now, and all who stand with them, and all those who are not with them, right? And that's referring to the future generations. Again, he made a first covenant, God made a first covenant at Mount Sinai, right? Look at 24:14 Exodus, right? He told Moshe to come up to the mountain, and I will give you the stone tablets engraved with the 10 Commandments, the other commandments, which is the oral Torah, and the written teachings. That's in Exodus 24:14. So that congregation which made a covenant with the Jewish people at that time, that was the first covenant, besides that of Abraham. But at that time in Exodus, when they went up to the Jewish people stood in front of the mountain, stood in front of Mount Sinai, they were given the Ten Commandments orally. 10 Commandments orally, and of course, that was in chapter 20, and 21, 22, 23, 24 were the laws between man, and they were given to included in with the instructions and decrees and ordinances that were taught at Mount Sinai, and we see it's 24:14. And all the people said, "Naaseh v'nishma," we will do and we will learn. Naaseh, we will do. So somebody in the 21st century saying, "Well, I didn't agree to that covenant. I'm not bounded by those laws and those decrees that my forefathers accepted." But the point is that the Torah says that you are bound by those decrees if you're born of a Jewish mother. And to buttress that support, in the holy prayers that we say every day, Emes V'Yatzav, and the prayer after Shema Yisrael, we said, true and certain, Emes, true, V'Yatzav, and certain, are these words, these beautiful teachings and thoughts, everlasting are they in our mind and in our descendants. We affirm that declaration. So we're affirming that declaration that God made with the Jewish people and their descendants, because it says in Deuteronomy 29:13, I make this covenant before they're entering Israel with you who are standing here and those that are not standing here, meaning the future generations. Okay, so that's what happened. And this is the wedding picture. And it's interesting to note that we still carry on this tradition today, the wedding and the Sheva brachos that follow, the week of 7 brachos, 7 days. 7 is so prominent in Jewish teaching. You know, the world was created in 7 days. The flood will begin in 7 days in time of Noah. The bird that flew out of the ark was the dove after 7 days. So 7 is mentioned throughout the Torah, and it's a memorial to our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the creator of heaven and earth, who created the world in 7 days. And on the 7th day, he created Menucha, the concept of rest, which is so important. And not that we make up in our minds what is considered rest, right? We make it up in our minds what is considered rest, but it may not be according to what the Torah tells us to be rest. And there are 39 categories which we can package and incorporate it into our everyday life, and especially on Shabbos, the Sabbath, right? So that is the purpose of life for a Jew. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, I put before you life and death. Choose life. I put before you life and death. Choose life that you might live. So that's talking about this world and the next world, meaning choosing life, choosing virtuously, and all your interactions and all your vicissitudes that you find yourself throughout your life. And therefore, you will attain a long life in this world, a long life of happiness, and more importantly, the next world, where you are to be happy. Why? Because in the next world, you will be reliving all the situations in life, in living color, where you choose virtuously. And your ears will be spinning, because here you see all the accumulations of good deeds, and how you stay focused on living as a committed Jew. Living as a committed Jew being that Torah and commandments are foremost in everything you do in life. And that's our goal, to, after 120 years, bring with us all those good accomplishments that we can show over and live over, and one, for happiness, and two, to earn our rightful place in the next world. According to the effort, so is the reward. And if we put a lot of effort and work and accomplishments and obstacles which we overcome, then we will accrue a higher mark. Even though it says that all Jews, and of course those righteous converts, inherit the world to come. All Jews inherit the world to come. Except if you did fall away, break away from the congregation, like Korach, and he was there when the Torah was given, yet he wanted to change the directions and teachings that Moses got before at Sinai. So what happened to him? If you look in Numbers over there, the earth opened up and swallowed him up, and those descendants who did not repent. And there were, at the last moment, those repenters before going down into the earth, into that sinkhole. Many repented and were saved to live a fruitful life, and a life committed to Torah according to the laws of Moses, and not according to those that want to incorporate their ideologies with the Torah ideology. As a matter of fact, when Moses came down from Sinai, and he saw the people dancing and worshiping an idol, rather than incorporate that and make it part of the teachings, he threw down the tablets. He threw down the 2 stone tablets that was given to him by God, the only physical object ever given by God to the Jewish people, broken, engraved by the finger of God. And we say figuratively, we said the finger of God, the head, God's ears. They're figurative matters of speech. God was seen as a bloody warrior. God was pictured all in white. Those are all figuratively speaking sayings, but no one can see God and live. So those ideologies that say they have a man God and we saw God and all of that, that is not Judaism, and we cannot and we should not have any conjunctions with them, right? Okay, so here we are. That's our goal in life. And you know, it says over there in Exodus, and write this down and look it up, because it's not only a receiver, you have to do work. And that's according to the effort, so is the reward. You're listening fine, and that's wrong with that education. We got to work ourselves. And I just wanted to point out to you that we have this new sign up here, that a work in progress, where we're trying to get storefront learning centers. Let me see if I have a better shot of it. A storefront learning center, the picture of individuals learning by themselves using the books that we recommend according to what the mashgiach, or the man in charge of the storefront school, and whether it's beginners or one learning Talmud and needs help in what's happening here, what have you. But this is a concept that we hope to put into progress, and put it into reality. So if anyone wants to help in this undertaking, because you know, Talmud Torah keneged kulam, the study of Torah is equal to all the mitzvahs. And you can call this number and leave your telephone number. We'll get back to you at 516-280-0662. 280-0662. So, where are we, right? This is my grandson's wedding. This is the grandson's wedding. This is the bride. As I say, they're not good pictures. They're taken by an amateur. Maybe later on we'll get some more pictures. Anyway, what happened? Also, we do a deal in shidduchim. In other words, people that are looking for a soulmate, give us a call at this number, and we charge everybody the family rate, no fee. Okay, getting back to, we've done about 15 of them over the last 40, 50 years. So where are we now? So we know what the purpose of life is to, we're talking about a Jew, right? His purpose is, you know, I wanted to go and tell you a little bit about the bride's family, who traced their ancestry back to Spain and North Africa, finally going to Spain and the Iberian Peninsula, but they lived in North Africa, having traversed the North African coastline after the destruction of the temple by the Romans and all of their civilizations, and we're still around, even though those Babylonian, Assyrian, and Roman and Greek civilizations were powerful, but they're all can be found by the bulldozer. But the Jewish people live on only through their Torah. And so, as we were saying, so they were North African, they're Sephardim, and they finally crossed over to Spain, and then into Portugal, the Inquisition. They had to travel to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam they stayed a while, and then they found a safe haven in British West Indies, Jamaica. and they stayed in Jamaica for approximately 300 years until they came to America in 1950. Came to America in 1950, and my granddaughter's father is one of 13 children, and her mother is one of 9 children. So that's a story in itself. Okay, but we're still around, and we're kicking. And what happened was, here's another darkened picture. What happened was that, yeah, so that's a man's job. That's a Jew's job, to strive for perfection, to holiness, which means perfection in this world, and all the interactions that you have with people, places, and things. In other words, people, if you see a sage, a learned person walk by, one should rise. Why? Because just like we rise when we see the Torah, the holy writings, so we should rise when a sage who is knowledgeable in Torah walks by, because he is an embodiment of Torah. So again, it seems like a very clear path. The path is to get to the next world with good marks. And listen, what should be bad? We just behave ourselves, follow the rules. There are obstacles in our way, we'll overcome them, and we'll get a good mark after 120 years. But the obstacles can be very, very strong. Those that are very knowledgeable in Torah, their obstacles are great. Those not so learned, obstacles won't be as high. But here, where do we learn that out? We learn it out from the Torah. Over there it says in Genesis, write it down, Genesis 4:7, right? Genesis 4:7. Over there it says, sin croucheth at the door, is desirous to you. Sin crouches at the door and is desirous to you. In other words, there's an outside influence that is commanded to attack you, to make it difficult for you to stay on track and to keep the commandments. And he is at the door waiting for you to make some kind of a ambiguous move, and he will tell you in no uncertain terms, subtly or whatever way, to go to the wrong turn, right? Go to the wrong turn. And that's the evil inclination. It has many guises, many changes. Its forms are different. Like when it tempted Adam and Eve, it was a snake. But it can take on many different forms, and you have to be aware that the Torah trumps any of these seemingly beautiful thoughts. So here we are, and that's the outside evil inclination that tempts you all the time. And then we have the inborn inclination that can be turned against you. That being the inclination. The evil inclination is on 4:7, and the outside is double the 4 is 8, and triple the 7 is 21. 8:21. Over there it says the inclination of man is evil from his youth. The inclination of man is evil from his youth. How does that explain? Okay, many people don't know that sentence, but basically it is telling us that yes, God made man and he put everything good, only good qualities he put into man. But if man uses those qualities in a bad way, he will be accordingly ruled as bad. For instance, a man has been given anger, and it's for a particular reason, so they can overcome obstacles and give instruction to loved ones, etc. So you have anger, you have jealousy. You want to jealous on someone's learning, not his possessions, right? Someone's learning. You want to be better and strive to the top and spend as much time as possible with learning. There's another inborn characteristic. What does it say over there? Stolen waters are sweet. Stolen waters are sweet. I have waters and possessions that I'm happy with, but over there's something that may even make me feel happier. So yeah, you can stolen waters. I want to come to the act of stealing, which is wrong, whatever it is. You have on a fast day, when you just started to fast, and you walk into the synagogue to pray for forgiveness for our sins, and you say, "Wow, I need another drink of water. I must have another morsel of food. I just need it." Even though you had a big meal and you had everything in it, you still must have another piece, and that's your inborn inclination tempting you on. So that's what we have. It's not a clear sailing, but Abraham. It's not a clear sailing, but Abraham knew all the teachings and the Torah and everything connected with the directives of ordinances and decrees before the Torah was given. They said, how could that be possible? Well, let me give you an example. I have my son-in-law, my son standing under the chuppah, and he was active in HASC, and one of the crippled, disabled children he came to the wedding, and he hung out with the young men, and he enjoyed himself. And what do we learn this out from? That this quality, it's from a pasuk in Isaiah, the Jewish prophet Isaiah. Now the Goyim, the Gentiles, want to use that. They use it for their own means. They make all kind of things out of our words, out of our books. They make all kinds of negative teachings that have nothing to do with the Torah. So yeah. So what does it say in 57:15 in Isaiah? It says, "I dwell in holiness, but also with the chronically ill and low of spirit, to make their spirit high." Again, I dwell in holiness and also dwell with the brokenhearted, chronically ill, to raise their spirit, to raise their spirits. And that's what, I think it's from the Talmud, it says that, over there in the Talmud, it says, do not forget the teachings of righteousness, even though you may be suffering and vicissitudes, but there is a tomorrow. There is a tomorrow. In other words, stay with your righteousness, stay with your Torah teachings, and even though there are sufferings and travails, tribulations, right? Tribulations, suffering. Even though there are sufferings, you stay with your righteousness, because tomorrow brings a reward, is another day. So that's in Isaiah 57:15. I dwell on high in holiness, and I am with the chronically ill and low of spirit to raise their spirits. And this is what my grandson does. He knew the Torah without even learning that sentence, because he works with the handicapped and Summers to raise their spirits. And here he figured out a pasuk from the Torah, right? The Torah is the 24 written books of the Bible, but more specifically, it usually refers to the 5 first books, but there are 24 written books of the Torah. So that's what happened over there, and so we got the Emes V'Yatziv, and 6 over here. So what happened over recognize Hashem is, so how do we recognize that God is God, that there is a God, supreme ruler over heaven and earth and all that exists? We look at nature and all the animals and creatures that have been created, each with a different need for food, different type of food that will fuel their systems so that they can live and reproduce. Each one with a different type of a need of food. I mean, the lion has a need for raw red meat. I mean, you have the deer and the antelope. They need fresh, green grazing land. And the sheep and the goat, they subsist on basically grass. And you could never cultivate enough grass to feed all the flocks that are constantly being pasturing in the fields. And God made it so that the grass could be plentiful, for he knew that there would be animals that would be grazing. What a beautiful a concept that we could pass over to our friends. And secondly, look at all the miracles he has done for the Jewish people. All the miracles that he split open the sea for the Jews to pass through in Egypt. He stricken the enemies, and you go on and on and on. So those are ways that we can understand the reality that there is a God, because he doesn't want to make it too obvious, but the Jewish people can see how obvious God's presence is amongst our people and helping them to accrue the commandment and their rewards that will follow. And over there in 31:17 in Deuteronomy, that if they go off the derech, off the way, they will be for devouring. And that's what it was, and that's how it's always been. That for instance, in World War II, before the World War began, the Jews threw off the beautiful Torah schools, and they wanted to be equal with the Gentiles, and they accepted communism. Let's share, and let's all be one people. But the Jewish people is a people that dwells alone. They are not to be counted among the nations. Numbers 23:19. 23:9. Numbers, right? We have 5 books of Moses that were divinely dictated to him in 31:24, right? Deuteronomy. And 23 and 9 and 10 in Numbers, it says it's a people that dwells alone. They are not to be reckoned among the nations. It's a people that dwell alone. They can come and convert according to the halacha and live our lifestyle, but we're not to go to them. We're not to follow leaders like in pre-World War II, where the whole place was going into communism and equality. And so therefore, once the leadership goes, that's when God hides his face, so to speak, and they will be for devouring. So that's how it's so important to tell your friends, maybe this program, to tune into this program. You can catch us on the internet, on the Google search, Yeshiva Class YouTube 3-minute Torah lesson. Yeshiva Class YouTube 3-minute Torah lesson. Because here we know, we're watching the impeachment. What a farce that is on the air. And who do you have on both sides you have Horowitz, the Inspector General. You have Adam Schiff and Jerome Nadler, who went to the 6th grade in Crown Heights Yeshiva, although he didn't get anything past that, and therefore he remains basically an ignoramus as far as knowledge of Judaism and the putting into practice of Judaism. So you have all these lawyers and doctors and research people inventing all kinds of great things and doing greatness for humanity, right? Yeah, and it's such a small number of Jews in the world, yet they're the ones that have the intelligence, and that intelligence was given to the Jewish people to show the world and show the people the way that we conduct our lives, right? If we do all the mitzvahs, Deuteronomy chapter 4 or 5, if we do all the mitzvahs, then the nations of the world will say, what a wise and understanding people they are that have a God so close to them. Here we have all the cultural and scientific and knowledgeable organizations and groups and heads of state. I mean, the head of Ukraine is a Jew. The head of Ukraine is a Jew. Go figure. And after all that they did to us in Babi Yar, where they killed like 60,000 in a matter of 3 days, they just marched them up and murdered them. Where are those evil people? Where are those evil people that have not been brought to justice? The courtroom is not a place for rehabilitation. It's not a place for rehabilitation. It's a place for punishment if you were so found guilty, right? If you were so found guilty. And here we have, look, we have the people, bringing them, look at the faces of the people, bringing them to Auschwitz, sorting them out, murdering them like they're pieces of wood. Look at that. And here, the men, women, and children. Here, they're given experiments, human experiments, before the good doctor, before the German doctor dog. Where are these people? Well, they all died now, right? It's 70, 80 years later. Here they're given injections, all kinds of human experiments on these poor hapless souls. Why? Because they went away and God let those evil people come to the fore. And it says in the Talmud, those people who are experiments, it's experiments, books of figures of dastardly acts. And here the soldiers, the great German army, Heil Hitler, Heil, Heil, here they are, murderers. Look what they did to the prisoners, starving them, beating them, torturing them, all kind of atrocities. For what reason? One thing is that any Jew that has been killed because he was a Jew automatically gains the next world. That's a consolation we have. But we want to live and fix the world through Torah and learning. Unfortunately, we are not there yet, but we will be there. Here we have the women, new arrivals, coming into the camp, where they shave their heads and then give a starvation diet until they drop dead, or picked for selection and gassed and then cremated. And you say, well, it's over now, forget that people died. No, we have to, here they made fun. They put an orchestra together to welcome the arrivals. You've seen the pictures, you've seen the mound, the bones and dastardly acts they did. You've seen it all. And we can't let it happen again, God forbid, because the leadership must be ruled by observant people. They must be ruled by observant people. And that's the message. You say, where are these Germans that did all these acts? We can't do anything to them. There's a sentence in the Torah that says, I put before you life, and I bring death. Again, I put before you life and bring death, and no one can save them from my hand. And no one can save them from my hand. It means that those evil people that did all these atrocities will be in hell, will rot there for eternity. But nevertheless, we still want to record some punishment for these evildoers that the acts that they committed. And that's why I propose, the funds were available, I would find these good doctors that experimented on humans, or the torturers that tortured and hung and did all kind of dastardly things, and I would put a short biography of where they served, and that should be the reminder to the German people to set these up before the people in Germany, to show what their ancestors were like. Okay, so much for that. Where else can we go? I saw the president rally over there in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and you see, wow, thousands of people came. It was like 15,000 people were there in this armory, and then there were people outside in a cold night. Where does any other presidential candidate have such gatherings? Because he is blessed with goodness because of two sentences in the Torah. All right, write it down. It says over there in 24:9 in Genesis, right? 24, chapter 24, verse 9, and Excuse me. It's 12:3 in Genesis. 12:3 in Genesis, then we double the 12. 24, triple the 3, 9. 24:9 in Numbers. And over there, it says, I may have some of the numbers written wrong, but anyway, 12:3 in Genesis says, whoever blesses the Jewish people are blessed, and whoever curses the Jewish people are cursed. Whoever blesses the Jewish people is blessed, and whoever curses the Jewish people is cursed. Now, he has done tremendous goodness for the state of Israel, giving them the Golan Heights. That's on their map in all the ambassadorships and maps and throughout the world in Jewish under Jewish under American auspices. So yeah, not them with grave mother. Yeah, so that's what we have. You know, there is suffering on this world, and many things we learn from suffering. You know, you realize that the vicissitudes, the changes that come upon yourself, where one minute you're top of the world, and the next minute you're in jail, or you're suffering from a disease, and a disease that is cannot be rectified. And so, you know, how these changes come about, there must be a God, or two. Suffering brings empathy. You know, who do you see on the forefront of civil rights movement? All helping, all wanting to empathize with the underdog, no matter where they are, not looking for personal gain, but to help the underdog, because the Jewish people were maligned and forced into slavery, or pseudo-slavery, throughout the generations. So we empathize, right? Suffering makes us believe that there must be a God how I found myself in this situation. Two, to empathize with them, because we went through those diseases and those horrific punishments and servitude throughout our ages. And three, when an anti-Semite hits you, or curses you, or does evil to you, you realize that there must be a place where judgment is handed out, and it gives you the strength to realize that there is a next world, right? And for suffering, even though you're not a believer yet when the bombs start raining, you run to the foxhole and you pray to God that He save you, that He help you. And five, suffering also makes you humble, and not like Moses, who stood before God, or Abraham, who had such a great realization of God, but come to the idea that you are standing before God, that you're standing before God. Have that in your mind, so that you'll be carried forward in a positive way. and be humble, which is a very good quality, and a quality we say in the last blessing of the Amida, the standing prayer. Yeah, that's in the last paragraph in the Shemona Esrei. So here we are, we're recording this on December the 11th, 2019, and there's a few hours left before the government or the Knesset in Israel will be dissolved, and there will be another elections on March 2nd, 2020, which will be the third election in less than a year. The third election in less than a year. And there's no one at the head of the state. And you say, how could that be? I mean, you have this party, you have 60, you have 57 for the right-wing government of Likud and Jewish Home and the Haredis, and you have 55 for an anti-religious person like Lapid, the blue and white, and Gantz, who wants to do away with all those teachings of Torah. And you have Lieberman, who could have solved the problem. He's a right-winger, but he can't stand the Torah. And the Torah people were never in such numbers, because when a state was founded in 1948, and subsequently years, approximately 4 years for the next election, the religious parties had 10 for Mizrahi and 5 for Aguda. And there were many others that voted for Likud and Labor, but where is Labor now? They barely can make the threshold of 4. And at one time they were the dominant party. And we have a memorial service of Yitzhak Rabin, and who was assassinated. But do we remember the soldiers and sailors that were blown to smithereens on the Atlantia boat, which tried to bring in munitions to the Irgun Jabotinsky army, and Yitzhak Rabin gave the order to blow the boat up? Where do we remember those sailors and soldiers who died in the sanctification of God's name? Where do we remember them? We remember Yitzhak Rabin. And so we see that Israel is going to the third election in less than a year. And you say, well, listen, that's what happened. They couldn't get together. They couldn't form a majority of 61 seats. But let it be known that if there was a government formed, then Honorable President Donald Trump will have to present that government with notification that we have to give the Arabs a part of the land. And being that there's no government in Israel, he can't present that declaration. He cannot present that declaration. He made the settlements of those beautiful people holy. And I just want to move out camera for a minute because I had some pictures I wanted to show you. And these are the heroines that protect the settlements. Here they're pushing their baby carriage and their automatic weapons in defense of their trailer park, in defense of the Jewish nation, which was promised the land by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob from God. God told Abraham, I will give you and your descendants the land of Canaan. But you have to wait 400 years until the evil of the Canaanites are reached, and then I will drive them out because they are so evil. And he told Isaac to walk throughout the land to never leave the land. And that includes Gaza, where the Jews just gave it over to the Arabs. And they used the irrigation piping to shoot rockets into Israel. We can't give back any land. It was given to us by God. Jacob, in the same way, he traveled throughout the land. He set up monuments indicating that this land is given to us by God Almighty. And we're still around today, and God is keeping that promise. Only God could have pulled such a fantastic deliverance of the land to the Jewish people. But we have to have hishtadlus. We have to take action. We have to make an act. Look, I said a lot of things over here. I think we're coming to a close. So I want to wish everybody blessing and a salacha, and got to review. Prophet Micha said 3 things: love kindliness, do justice, and walk humbly with God. Memorize a pasuk. Memorize a sentence in the Torah. Review the Sedra. Look at the portion in English of the Torah that is going to be read in the synagogue. With that, I wish you all the best. Good day, and God bless.